I've read all the books, I watched the interview with the Color Daddy podcast, and I am just as excited as all of you are for the next ACOTAR book coming out in October. So given everything I have access to, here's what I expect to see. It's important to note you do need Crescent City knowledge for this book. I don't know what direction she's going in, but the end of Crescent City makes it abundantly clear that there is going to be consequences in Prythian because of what happens in Crescent City. So I strongly encourage you to read the books for yourself, but if you don't want to, I get it. My husband doesn't want to either. So I actually have a video in the works where I'm explaining Crescent City to him so that he can get caught up and you guys can get caught up through him. And he's going to ask all the questions that we're sure you guys would have. So stay tuned for that. So here's where we get into the spoilers because I'm just going to put it all in this one video. Just from the ACOTAR books so far, here's what we know. The Valkyries have been established. Koschei is still untouched, although it does seem the mortal queens are done now. Elain and her powers, still a big old question mark. The Spring Court is essentially abandoned. Lucien is probably Helian's son and therefore heir to the Day Court. And Feyre and Rhys made a whole new cauldron. From Crescent City, we get the Star Sword, aka the return of Gwydion. We have everything that Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel went through under the prison. Which, on that note, we have an 8th court, the Dusk Court. We have no more prison. That prison has turned into the Dusk Court, and currently its ruler by blood and right is Bryce, who lives on a different planet. Bryce, said character, has revealed to everyone in Prythian that these creatures called the Daglin, that we have not been privy to yet, are interstellar parasites who they've been able to kick out before. They're currently reigning over Midgard, and they have every intention of coming back to Prythian to take back what they feel is theirs. And from the interview, we have honestly just the one thing. The perspective that she wrote through was a surprise to Sarah Maas. Okay, so that's everything we know. Those are the facts. Now we get into Crazy Town and I get to speculate. I think the perspective is going to be Lucien. I think it's a surprise to her because she intended to write through Elain. Because she promised us an Elain book. We know we're getting an Elain book. It's happening eventually. It just has to. But given the way she spoke about her writing process, it wouldn't surprise me if Lucien decided to tell the story instead of Elain. Some benefits to Lucien being the perspective. He can tell us more about Vassa and Jurian. Like, we also don't know anything about them. We don't know what's gone on in the mortal realms after all this hybrid nonsense. We don't know if Koschei has started moving more. We don't know what's going on under the wall. And Lucien, being friends with Vassa and Jurian, will be able to get that insight for us. Because of the mating bond, he's going to get to know Elain better. She's going to have to open up to him in time because otherwise, it's a very boring story. And I don't think that's what Sarah Maas is going to do. And if anyone can get her to open up about whether or not she actually has magic, it's going to be her mate. Or Azriel, because, she's super comfortable with him. But that's a different video. Lucien, as an emissary for the Night Court, will be able to get all of the updates about what is happening with Bryce and Nesta and Azriel. So I suspect what's going to be happening is everything's going to be mirroring the Crescent City timeline. So we have several points. First, Bryce comes in and nobody knows what's going on. And I think we're going to get that from the Night Court perspective, which I'm hoping is Lucien, but it could be anyone. And then Bryce goes away, and there's a whole lot of chaos, including the Dusk Court returning, and all of the prisoners have been released, and all of that. Oh, and she took Truth Teller with her. Then Bryce comes back with friends, seemingly, i.e. her mate and her parents, where she just drops her parents off as collateral, and Nesta allows her to borrow the mask. So we're going to need that update from the Night Court. And then Bryce comes back a third time to collect her parents and return Truth Teller and also return Gwydion, the Star Sword, to Prythian. And she just kind of leaves them there and gives them to Nesta and says, here, I think it's your turn. So originally what I thought was we were going to be getting the basically the same story, but from Nesta's perspective. Because I trust Sarah Maas to not require the outside reading as much as they did for things like Stranger Things. with that little play that they had, that if you didn't watch it, you have no idea what they're referencing in the show. Yeah, I trust Sarah more than that. So I thought we were going to be getting that story from the Night Court perspective. But then I watched the interview on the Call Her Daddy podcast. And so now I think we're still going to get those bits and pieces. I think we're going to get updated. But the main story, I think, is going to be Lucian's story. And he's going to be figuring out all of the things that are still left unanswered. And also getting updates about everything Bryce is doing, because, you know, that's his role. Rhys said he's the fox for a reason, and we still have yet to see what that reason is. Also important, Bryce tells them about electricity and how Midgard has been able to have what is modern technology for us, like cell phones. But Randall and Ember, Bryce's parents, like, they actually have their phones on them, and Randall has guns on him when they are brought to Prythian, because they don't know that they're about to be left there. They think that they're about to go help Bryce open the rift, as if there's some way they could help with that. But anyway, so they had no idea that Bryce was about to just drop them off on a whole different world. So they have their stuff, and when we see them again, we find out that Ember and Randall have made friends with, like, the entire Night Court. Like, they love Rhys, they love Nyx, they love Cassian, everyone. They just love it there, which also implies that they probably allowed them to look through the phone and see how it works. And I don't know that Randall and Ember could answer more questions than Bryce about how that technology worked, but I suspect they were around closer to when it was made, so they could probably give some sort of insight. And then, you know, if Bryce ever decides to come back to Prythian, she can explain about the First Light and how all of that is harnessed. So things that I'm expecting, hopefully in this book, but maybe not until the next one, depending on how Sarah Maas decides to integrate the Crescent City work into the specific ACOTAR series. Rhys is going to make electricity happen, because why wouldn't you make cell phones if you could? For anyone who's not Daemati, cell phones are a game changer. Like, if anybody could communicate the way that Rhys and Feyre do, we all just know that that's a better world, right? Also, we know that the Asteri, Daglin, whatever, are coming back one day. They want to come back as, like, a whole race of people. They want to come back and reclaim Prythian. And Rhys knows that too. So if he doesn't implement the technologies that Midgard has, he's very foolish, and he's setting up all of the courts to fail. I'm also expecting more history lessons from Amren, and we might even get to meet other creatures who are equally old and have been around for some of that history that has been erased from modern memory, which is a Crescent City experience. There is a whole shit ton of cave art, basically, for Amren and Elain and the Scholars of the Day Court and anyone else who's like that, maybe the priestesses from the library, for them to go down, explore it, and really, like, match it against their libraries. And I'm sure they're going to want to expand their knowledge of the history of Prythian. And I think that's why it turned into a 3-book part, the way she described it, because she has to compensate for a 3-part different series that is now jumbled into it and completely enmeshed. So I think that alone makes it a 2-book explanation, because we have, again, what Bryce is doing in Prythian versus what everyone else is doing in Prythian, which is already its own thing and already established, has all of these loose ends we gotta tie up. So that's what I'm expecting in the next ACOTAR book, but let me know what you think down in the comments.